Hello, friends. This is Confessions with Amy. Here we share new confessions every day.
You never forget the moment your husband laughs while breaking your heart. That laugh, sharp, careless, like he'd just won a bet, burned itself into my memory. I was standing in a hotel room in Portland, Oregon, on the 18th floor of the Westin, looking out at the Willamette River when my phone rang. His voice came through the line with that familiar smugness I hadn't fully noticed before. "Hey, Iris," he said casually. "Just wanted to save you the trouble when you get back. I'm leaving you. I'm with Callista now. We've been together a while, and yeah, I sold the house last week. Everything's done. Good luck finding a new place." Then he laughed. A real laugh. Like it was a punchline to some private joke. And all I said was, "Good luck." Because that laugh, that call, it wasn't a surprise. It was a confirmation. I already knew about Callista, the 28-year-old yoga instructor who called herself a healer and couldn't spell subtlety if you spotted her the first 6 letters. I had known for 8 months. 8 months of pretending, preparing, and putting pieces into place. 8 months of studying his patterns, his banking habits, his lies, all while smiling and cooking dinner like the perfect suburban wife in our little mid-century modern home in Lafayette, California. Let me tell you something about betrayal. It hurts less when you're ready for it. I remember the first time I saw a text from Callista pop up on his phone. Her name was saved as C. Phillips Pilates. Amateur. He had left the phone face up on the nightstand while he showered. I wasn't snooping. Not at first. But when your gut screams at you, you don't ignore it. Not anymore. From there, it was like peeling an onion of rot. I didn't confront him. Not then. No teary fights, no drama. I just watched and took notes. He thought I was stupid. That's the thing about men like Thayer. They confuse silence with ignorance. And Thayer Barrow was charming, tall, ex-fraternity, ex-football, now a real estate agent with a giant smile and a bigger ego. People loved him. He loved himself more. We'd been married 12 years. No kids by choice. Or at least my choice. He wanted a baby to fix things. I wanted him to grow up. Instead, he found Callista. While he was out showing houses on weekends, I met with a lawyer. A very good lawyer. Beverly Juneau, sharp, seasoned, and a pit bull in stilettos. She showed me how to move quietly. I opened a private account. Transferred my salary. Got him to sign documents he didn't read, thinking they were tax forms. They weren't. I sold stocks, bought a condo in my name, all while keeping up the act. We even went to his boss's wedding in Napa and danced like a couple who still had sex. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. So when Thayer called me laughing when he told me he had sold our home, I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I simply said, "Good luck," because I knew something he didn't. He hadn't sold our house. I had. He hadn't read the paperwork I gave him 2 months ago, the one where he transferred his half of the property into my trust for refinancing purposes. And Callista? She was about to find out just how attractive a broke, legally homeless man really is. I hung up the phone and took another sip of wine, watching the lights on the river flicker. He thought he played me, but the game hadn't even started yet. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I prefer it room temperature, with a side of legal documentation and a long paper trail. When I first suspected Thayer was cheating, I did what most women do. I doubted myself. Gaslighting doesn't always come in screaming matches. Sometimes it's just a look, a shrug, a half smile when you ask, "Who's Callista?" And he answers, "You're being paranoid again." But I wasn't paranoid. I was married to a man who thought charm was a substitute for character. So I did what any woman with a finance background and a very expensive education would do. I planned. Let me take you back to 8 months before that phone call. It started with a burner phone. I bought it at a gas station outside Santa Rosa and used it only to take photos, receipts, text messages, screenshots of hotel bookings under his name. I never texted. I never called. I just archived. Quietly. I created a digital folder labeled Tax Receipts 2023 and backed it all up to the cloud, encrypted and invisible unless you knew the exact string of characters to unlock it. Next, the money. Thayer and I had a joint account, of course, But what he didn't know was that my consulting firm offered a separate bonus disbursement option. I redirected my quarterly bonuses into a credit union account he'd never heard of, under my maiden name, which I had never legally changed. That gave me about $92,000 of quiet capital. Then came the trust. My attorney, Beverly Juneau, looked over my shoulder across a table at a coffee shop in Walnut Creek and said, "You want to go nuclear?" I said, "I want to go invisible." So we did. We formed the Iris Delaney Barrow Living Trust, named me sole trustee, and began transferring anything of value, artwork, jewelry, intellectual property, investment accounts, into it. We left the house for last. I waited until he was drunk. Not the sloppy kind, the talkative kind. It was his friend Deacon's 40th birthday. Thayer had had too much bourbon, and I slipped the documents into a stack of mortgage refi paperwork. He signed every page without reading a word. I notarized it the next day. "Congratulations, Thayer. You just signed over your half of the house." Then I started bleeding the joint account. Not in a way that would make alarms go off. Just small, routine transfers, $700 for car repairs, $450 for mom's medication, $1,200 for professional development. He never noticed. He was too busy playing the charismatic husband in public and the detached roommate at home. He thought he was winning. What he didn't know was that I already knew about the second phone he kept in the glove box of his Lexus. I knew the passcode, Callista's birthday. November 14th, Scorpio. Of course. That phone was a goldmine. Photos, messages, voice memos. Some things that, frankly, no one wants to see their husband doing. But I watched every single one. Not out of masochism. Out of strategy. Because when Thayer would finally try to leave, when he'd throw his little bomb and expect me to collapse, I needed to be 2 steps ahead. Which is exactly what I was. By the time he called from the comfort of his new apartment in Emeryville, I had already secured a new residence, a high-rise condo in the Marina District with full security, a concierge, and no trace of his name on the lease or the mailbox. I had changed my mailing address 2 weeks earlier. I had removed him from every insurance policy. I had even, very kindly, canceled his credit card, the one tied to my business account that he borrowed from time to time. He thought he was walking away with the upper hand. He didn't know he was stepping off a cliff I built brick by brick. And I stood there at the edge, watching him fall, slowly, legally, and with no chance of catching himself. I landed back in California on a Thursday afternoon. The weather was sharp, that kind of dry October sun that feels too bright, like it's trying to expose something. Fitting. I took a car from SFO straight to Lafayette. I didn't rush. I stopped for coffee, sat in the car for a minute, played the voicemail again, just to remind myself what I was walking into. "I'm leaving you. Sold the house. Good luck finding a new place." That laugh. God. When I pulled into the driveway, something felt wrong. Not emotionally, visually. There was a moving truck parked halfway on the lawn. And there he was. Thayer. Standing on the front steps in a navy hoodie, arms crossed, pacing like a man who couldn't believe the world was finally telling him no. Or no, my house was locked. His keys didn't work. The movers were confused. His girlfriend, Callista, was sitting in the passenger seat of a white Tesla with a look that said, "This wasn't the fantasy I signed up for." I got out of the car and didn't say a word. He turned. The confidence in his face drained faster than a tipped glass of wine. "What the hell is going on, Iris?" I smiled. Small. Controlled. I had rehearsed this moment, but now it felt easy. "You tell me, Thayer. You said you sold the house." "I did. I mean, I signed with Keller Williams last week, their guy." "Yeah," I interrupted, pulling a manila envelope from my bag. "Except the house isn't in your name anymore. Hasn't been for 2 months." I handed him a copy of the transfer. He didn't take it, so I dropped it at his feet. "You signed it. Notarized. Witnessed. You didn't read it." Again. His mouth opened, then closed. His eyes darted toward the movers. One of them, a guy with tattoos on his forearms, smirked and whispered something to the other. I wasn't done. "The house was sold last week, yes. But by me. The escrow closed this morning. Funds are already in my trust. It was never yours to sell. So, I looked around at the boxes, at the stunned girlfriend and the bewildered ex-husband. Unless you're planning on trespassing, I suggest you take your things and go. You can't do this, he muttered. Oh, sweetheart. I tilted my head. I already did. He started to say something, but I cut him off. And Callista, I added, raising my voice just enough so she could hear. You might want to check the lease on your Emeryville apartment. It was co-signed using a joint account you no longer have access to. Hope you're good with first and last month's rent. She looked at him like he was radioactive. I didn't wait for a response. I walked past the movers, stepped inside the house, and closed the door behind me. Locked it. For a few moments, I just stood there. Alone. In the quiet. In the power. Not crying. Not shaking. Just still. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel like a stage set. It felt like mine. He sat outside for another 20 minutes. I watched from the upstairs window, sipping a glass of Pinot Noir from a bottle he'd once bought to impress his boss. Eventually, the truck pulled away. So did the Tesla. And just like that, Thayer Barrow, the man who thought he could play me, was gone. Not just from my house. From my life. He hadn't lost a wife. He had lost a partner who once protected him from his worst instincts. And now those instincts were free to devour him. Freedom doesn't come in a blaze of glory. It arrives slowly, like morning light creeping across a floor you used to tiptoe over. The week after Thayer was gone, I stayed in that house, my house, for 3 nights. I didn't move out right away. I wanted to feel what it was like to exist in that space without flinching at footsteps or fake apologies. I slept in the middle of the bed. I cooked what I liked. I played music at night. Nina Simone, Kate Bush, loud, with the windows open. Then I packed up and left. Not because I had to, but because I chose to. My new condo in the Marina District had floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the bay that made even silence feel luxurious. There was a sense of detachment I needed, physical and emotional. The kind that only comes when you get far enough away from the version of yourself that settled. Iris Delaney Barrow was gone. I was just Iris Delaney again. Clean. Sharp. Undiluted. I spent the first few days doing things I hadn't done in years. Swimming in the morning at the rooftop pool. Eating alone without guilt or explanation. Laughing. Out loud. Without watching someone's face to see if it was too much. I also took a sabbatical from work. A well-earned one. When I told my firm I was stepping back, the partners balked. They thought I was having a breakdown. No, I told them. I'm having a reintroduction. Then I launched Delaney & Company, a boutique advisory firm specializing in financial exits for women trapped in toxic marriages. Yes, I made a business out of what I'd just lived through. Turns out women talk. And when they find out someone like you knows exactly what they're feeling and how to make the law work for them, not against them, they show up. Quietly. Gratefully. Ready. My first 3 clients came through word of mouth. By month 2, I had 12. And there? Well, he called me once. Unknown number. Middle of the day. I was standing in my new office, organizing paperwork, and for some reason, I answered. His voice was smaller than I remembered. Iris, he said. You won. Okay. I get it. Can we talk? I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just listened. And then I said, I didn't win there. I just stopped losing. I hung up, blocked the number, and smiled. Because the truth is, I didn't need revenge. I needed clarity. And I finally had it. People assume the hardest part is the betrayal. It's not. It's what comes after. The silence. The empty mornings. The freedom you prayed for, staring back at you with no instructions. But that's where the real transformation happens. Not in the revenge, but in the rebuild. I stopped asking questions that didn't serve me. Why did he lie? Why wasn't I enough? Wrong questions. The real ones were, what do I want now? What am I no longer willing to carry? Iris 2.0 wasn't some phoenix rising from ashes. She didn't burn anything down. She walked away from the fire, calmly, head high, wearing heels and a plan. A few months after launching Delaney & Company, I started teaching a workshop at Berkeley, Financial Literacy for Women in Transition. It was packed. Women flew in from out of state just to hear from someone who'd lived it. I didn't give them false hope. I gave them tools. Because power doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it whispers through contracts, bank statements, and exit strategies. As for love, I'm not going to lie and say I swore it off. I didn't become bitter. I just became precise. One night, at a fundraiser in Sausalito, I met someone. His name is Rowan. Architect. Divorced. Quiet. Smart enough to listen. Secure enough to not be threatened by a woman who doesn't need him. We talked for hours. No games. No masks. On our third date, he looked at me and said, "You carry yourself like someone who lost everything but kept her soul." I said, "I didn't lose everything. I left it." He didn't ask what that meant. He just nodded and took my hand. Now we see each other when it makes sense. No entanglement. No expectations. Just mutual respect. And laughter. And space to be fully who we are. I've learned that sometimes the most radical thing a woman can do is choose herself, unapologetically. Not for spite. Not for attention. Just because she can. So no, I didn't fall apart when Thayer left. I woke up. And if I could go back to that phone call, that smug, stupid laugh, I'd still say the same thing. Good luck. Because it turns out, the life he ran toward was an illusion. And the life I built? It's real. It's earned. And it's mine.